We've been seeing the national government conducting what is called stage-managed public participations, what is otherwise known as illusionary. So for the purpose of just being seen to be doing public participation. But then you ask yourself, do the people whose opinions you are seeking, do they even understand what you are trying to tell them to participate in? So that has always been the question. And then the Supreme Court has advised that, well, it is important first that the people who you are seeking their opinion or views to first be made to understand
the process.
Understand what views do you seek from them? What is the repercussion? What is this information that you seek from them? For instance, in the most notarized example that today we are dealing with, on the question about the removal of His Excellency, Rigathi Gachagua from office, you ask yourself, have the people who are affected by the removal, I mean, this is the whole country now, have they understood and appreciated in full flavor the impeachment motion that was filed by the Kibwezi East Member of Parliament? Have they understood it? It's a 60-page document written in so many things, and their evidence. Have they understood from when it was filed on the 1st day of October 2024, and now we are on the 4th day of October? Have we had like civic education or civic education or enlightenment of the masses? Then has the evidence that is there probably in the National Assembly, has it been shared with all and sundry so that they can understand the kind of charges that the Deputy President is facing? So these are some of the questions that you ask yourself so that you get to understand whether the public participation that is being conducted today is being conducted in a manner that is meaningful. Or are we doing it for the very purpose of just doing it and living true to probably the dictates of Article 118 of the Constitution as read together with Article 10 of the Constitution? So those are some of the questions I want us to think about, ponder, even as our listeners and our viewers are watching us. They should just think about it. If they are going to offer their views, have they read, understood, do they appreciate the consequences of the kind of motion that has been tabled by the Honorable Member of Parliament in Parliament? Yes.
And Melly, picking from where Shadrach has left, we do acknowledge that civic education and also public participation has not been quite robust. I'm saying this because a good example is the 2023 Finance Bill and the 2024 Finance Bill, where Kenyans from all walks of life said, A, B, C, D, we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like this. But at the end of the day, the bill saw the light of day, but had to be shot down after the Gen Z protest. I'm looking at that position. This is the first time in the history of Kenya that we are having an opportunity to do public participation in regards to ejecting the second in command. And let's not be vague. This position, more or less, as I said earlier, sometimes it's more or less doomed if you do and doomed if you don't. I'm saying this because back in the 60s, Jaramogi had issues with Kenyatta and he had to resign. Another case was 1989 when we have the deputy president, the vice president back then was Josephat, and he had to resign. He didn't face the impeachment. This is the first time we are impeaching a deputy president, and it's also the first time that we are having public participation. Just like as Shadrach has raised issues in terms of civic education, time that is allowed for public participation as we wait for Tuesday. I'd like you to talk about it.
Yes, first, our Constitution is a gift to ourselves, and we made it possible that whenever members of Parliament want to carry out some responsibilities that are heavier on us, they have to do what we call public participation. My issue is there enough time to do this public participation? How many people will talk? How will they collect the memoranda, go through it, and by Tuesday, this memoranda is ready for adoption? Number 3, what evidence, as Wakili has said here, what evidence have they told the people they have? Because as I give my views in my village where I am, or that center where they have put public participation, what are these charges? how heavy are they? By the time I give my opinion, I should be informed on my opinion. And as I have said, let's be optimistic in every other thing that goes on in this country. We are undergoing test of our constitution. How strong is it? We put that clause in the constitution for a certain reason. There'll be a time, for example, a president will be impeached. There'll be a time where a senator can be recalled. There's a time where a member of parliament will be recalled. Let's test this constitution. Let's see how strong it is. And let's be optimistic, because these are processes. If there are enough grounds to impeach the deputy president, or perhaps again, the National Assembly and the Senate, that's Parliament in a nutshell, may not even find those grounds enough to impeach a deputy president, because people have created assumptions that it is going this way or that way. Let's see, let's not throw aspersions as we wait. At the same time, I think we are among the countries in Africa that have a bigger percentage of people who are literate. Let's look at our goals of education. What were we going to school to do? One, so that we can have some nationalism, feel that we are all Kenyans, not Kenyans from a certain corner of this republic. We are all Kenyans. Ben Troy, I can ask you, perhaps where you work and where you were born are two different places. And that's why we become Kenyans. When a matter is raised about somebody, let's not look at his tribe. Let's be objective in discussing the grounds that have been put there. Let's be patriotic enough to know that even my brother, my own brother, or my twin brother can make mistakes, and these mistakes have to be corrected. And there are procedures in law where mistakes are corrected. What again I'm wondering is, if the ones that were gazetted were per county, there were 47 public participation areas, but I'm wondering, are these places accessible to the common mwananchi? Are they within reach? Or must I spend some money to go and give my views? It should be per polling station. Where I vote is where I should give my views, because that is where they'll be captured well. And who is capturing? Have they enumerated the people who are going to capture these views? Or it's the member of parliament? If it is the one-sided member of parliament who has already appended a signature, I know he's going, I was seeing one, swaying the views of the people towards a certain direction. I think we are literate enough, we can make decisions. At the ballot box, I didn't stand with my member of parliament behind me. I didn't stand with my MCA behind me to give me a decision on who to vote. I am sure some people left the rallies in the evening promising some votes, but when they go to the ballot, they looked at the names and they decided, this is the person I want to lead me. So, as we also ponder on that, I'm still asking myself, now, after you have taken our views, as Wakili has said, Wakili Shatdoi, after you have taken our views, will you use them? Or already, because you have already appended your signature, you will vote that way? Now, what about the other around 60 who never appended their signatures anywhere? Where are they? We would want to know also, what are they feeling about this process? Yes, because on Tuesday, when the deputy president comes forward to defend himself, he already knows, I'm sure he has the charges with him, he has the evidence with him, because who alleges must also prove. And Kenya, at the moment when we are doing public participation, we are a bigger court. Unfortunately, our views will not be taken anywhere. And that is why we need the Public Participation Act. The National Assembly's archives is full of dead bills that are waiting to be taken to the floor of the House. And at the same time, what will the courts say after the entire process is done? Because the deputy president has a right to take himself even to the highest court to challenge the impeachment motion. And unfortunately, we saw the High Court the other day saying that perhaps it is premature to start discussing these things. Yes.
And Omondi, let me build on Melly has raised some pertinent issues in regards to will people know, have they had a view of that? And another thing, I remember I was in the media campaign to popularize and make sure the public participation in regards to Jisome, Jiamulie, you remember the 2010 constitution, that was 2009. And I remember we used to go to churches, we go to entertainment joints and give them the draft itself, the bill itself, both in Swahili and in English. Tuesdays, when this motion was tabled in Parliament, next week on Tuesday, that's about a week, is when the Deputy President will have an opportunity to defend himself. I feel that under public participation just one day and only in specific places, like for example, Nairobi, in as big as it is, we're only having the public participation at Bomas of Kenya. And looking at the robustness of the public participation, you feel we really have a long way to go?
We don't really have a long way to go. On issues of public participation, I think we're going too far on issues to do with this idea behind public participation. From what Melly is talking about, going to polling stations, it's not an election. Whatever you went to discuss over the new constitution, that is a whole document. It's a big, big process that needed that people participate, and a constitution is called a Leviathan. It's like a social contract between the people who are being governed versus the government. So we were making it a document for us. Impeaching of the deputy president, if you do such a robust process of getting enumerators, we will never move. We will never move. This is supposed to be not even subjected, according to me, to any form of public participation.
Why is that?
The constitution is very clear. The constitution. I gave you time. I gave you time, Melly. So just wait. You'll respond. You'll respond. I'll finish. What I'm saying is that as much as you voted for the ticket, there was a constitution that was governing us, and we said and we agreed in that constitution under Article 145. There's a way we elect a deputy president, there's a way we elect an MP, there's a way we elect a president, and there's a way we remove them. They can be removed through election when his term ends, which is natural and automatic, and they can also be removed through an impeachment. And impeachment, if they're being removed through an impeachment, it's a process of the representatives of the people, not the people. It's not a universal suffrage. There's universal suffrage processes, which are election. This is not an election. A removal of a president, according to the Constitution, are through death, through impeachment, through an election. They've decided to remove the deputy president through an impeachment. If he's going through an impeachment, what are the processes? Why do you bring up things like public participation, which are, there's no article in that public participation. And that is why the people who are doing it are not really doing it, or the parliament that is doing it are not doing it because they want it. They're doing it because they've lost cases in court, because they've not subjected things to some funny public participation, which at the end of the day is a useless process. And me and you have been here, Troy, discussing even the finance bill. And we know that the public participation, whatever came out of those processes, were not, and the Constitution does not demand that any process that come out of those public participation exercises should be documented on those documents. As the Constitution is the Public Participation Act that says that the percentage of what you get from the ground, the findings you get from the ground, these are the measure, and they should be part and parcel of. It is upon the representatives of the people, whom we gave power to go and represent us, 245 of them, is it 345 of them, whom we gave our powers. When you vote, you are voting to be represented by somebody. There are procedures in our constitution. What do we do for ourselves as a voter? What does the MP do? What does the governor do? Everybody have their obligations to do. So I don't think, and I don't support the issue of having to subject, they are experts. And I will tell you, Troy, when you come to university, the mistake that students do is plagiarism. I think our constitution was plagiarized. And I think we copied so much from other constitutions. And especially this one was copied from the American Constitution. If you see the impeachment process of a president in the American Constitution, it cures all this you're questioning here. But because we copied everything there, there are things that we didn't do. What happens in the American Constitution is this. When the House of Representatives, because whatever is taken to Parliament, there are unverified accusations against the deputy president. They are unverified. If you talk about Josephat Karanja, why was a motion of no confidence passed against Josephat Karanja in 1989? Was it 1989? 1989. Mwenje, who was the area MP for Embakasi, went and said that when Josephat Karanja called him and told him to kneel down while speaking to him, this is unverified. On those positions, a vote of no confidence was taken in Parliament, and Karanja had to resign based on those unverified accusations. Whatever is discussed at House of Representatives in the US are unverified accusations, like whatever Gachagua is accused of in Parliament, unverified accusations.
But you have an opportunity to...
Wait. But in America, what happens is the trial is done at the Senate. Get me right. In Kenya, the trial is done. In Kenya, what happens is that when Parliament has made its decision, it goes to Senate. When it goes to Senate, Senate does the same thing. In America, when it goes to Senate, the person who chairs the Senate is the Chief Justice. So it becomes a jury that happens at the Senate. Most of the impeachment that happens in Parliament, all the impeachments, not most, almost all of the presidents in America that have happened in the House of Representatives have never gone through the Senate in America because it is a proper jury where accusations are based on court processes where evidence is provided, as opposed to what happens
But
in
with all
Kenya.
fairness, Omondi, you are just like 14 years since we promulgated our constitution. But you respond to that as I also give Meli an opportunity. But for Nairobi, public participation is currently underway at the Bomas of Kenya. Let's first of all cross over and have a feel of exactly what is happening there. All right, those are some of the sights and sounds from the Bomas of Kenya, and as soon as we can get clear feed from the Bomas of Kenya, we'll be crossing over. Remember, we also have our reporters in Kisumu, Mombasa, and Kisii. Remember, it's being conducted in all the 47 counties in the country. And Mondi, just exactly, you kindly clarify that, because we are just less than 15 years since we started using the constitution. Those guys have decades.
Yes, those guys have decades. But I think
it's work in progress.
It's working in progress. And I think, for example, if we get to develop the idea behind the public participation clause, then we should be able to determine which issues would go to public participation and to what extent. But if you want a robust thing, and I've told you, the evidence provided. You see, like in America, there have been 3 impeachment against presidents. President Nixon resigned during the impeachment process. Clinton was impeached by the House of Representatives. Congress impeached Clinton. And Andrew Johnson also was impeached. But they were saved by the Senate. Why? Because the Chief Justice chaired the Senate, and the Senate checked on evidence, like just a court of law. But what happens in Kenya, whatever the Senate will be using against Gachagua are the same issues that Parliament shall have used against Gachagua, which are unverified accusations, because that is the House of Parliament again. But if we could have done the same thing like what happens in America, at least the people's ideas could be gotten, because at least the courts, that is why everything, almost a lot of things that have been in Kenya Kwanza, all the policy, when they go to court, based on evidence, they are lost in court. Even this public participation, because what they check as, what they did do as a public participation, we didn't do blah, 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 blah. Do you know that when Wambora, the first senator, the first governor of Embu was impeached, he won his case in court. Okay, you go.
Kindly hold the thought. We need to cross over to KBC Agricultural Training Center. My colleague JJ Kyoria is currently on standby, as you can see him on your screen, in regards to how the process, the public participation process, is currently underway. JJ, if you can hear me, good morning, and kindly bring us up to speed with the latest from KBC.
Thank you very much, Ben Troinju. We're coming to you live from the Agricultural Training Center in KBC County. Actually, this is Nyaribari Chancellor, and this is where the public participation regarding the impeachment motion against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is ongoing. And locals really have flocked to this center to submit their views, what their views is in terms of the impeachment that is ongoing, whether they support or a quick process before I engage a few people on what their views really are regarding the impeachment is that once you get here, you will register with your constituency. Which constituency in KBC County? Then you will proceed to the podium where you will get a form, and against that form you will confirm what or you don't, and then submit it. That is really what it is. And then later, of course, they will have a moment of a tete-a-tete and an engagement that leads towards having that of to impeach or not, but they to understand to other than less engaging here. We'll be talking to one and several of them very quickly, and what your views really are.
Names is Phil Batunga, Constitution kuongea meni mama na kusimu heshima na haipo warai. Sisi tunataka kutufanya kwa mkitaka pamoja. Sumba ya kama ya kwamba na both KBC and Nyamira have even a PS, but 50 was 70%. Now the big between you and Gachagua, who is tribal? Second, education. Stand up, which was been stopped yesterday about the bans. Mr. President, ask you to pay also so that get this country to the next level. Right. The issue of politics, let's stop. 7. If you want to do away with Rigathi Gachagua, good and well. But for now, leave that mistake Rigathi Gachagua to work for the Kenyans. Thank you.
Fantastic. Tusikize maoni ya Mkenya mwingine. Majina?
Yes, kwa majina, my name is Voice of Reason Africa. That is the name you find me, meaning. Number one, I would like to say this. The country is in a total mess, starting from the head to the toe. Number one, if at all there is an impeachment that is supposed to take place in this great Republic of Kenya, then we should start with the president. When you talk about tribalism, the leader of tribalism is the president, starting with appointments. Now let us talk about the parastatals we have in this great country. Almost all the parastatals are led by the Kalenjin community, and now they are.
Please refrain from making ethnic comments.
Okay, I'm sorry for that, but that is the truth. And then number two, when you want to talk about corruption, the leader of corruption is the president himself. I can speak that without any contradiction. The president is the leader of corruption, and therefore we need, if at all we need to impeach, and then we should start with the president. You know, you cannot, if you want to, if the fish is rotting, you cannot just chop the head, and then you have to start with the head. You remove everything, and therefore, no president. But we are also, as Kenyans, we are very angry. By the way, we are also thinking of recalling back even the MCs we have. I mean, our MPs in Parliament used as objects satisfy the president's agenda of the Kenyans and undermining the progress of this country.
Let's get the views of other Kenyans very quickly. Mzee Majina.
Mimi naitwa Nemweli Makana kutunote. Kitu mimi nasema huyu jamaa Rigathi aende nyumbani kabisa.
mambo ya ukabila kama anataka wa, lakini wakati walichaguliwa na Ruto kama Kenya wazima, mambo ya ukabila hatutaki.
Kijana hapa, very quickly, majina yako, maoni yako?
Kwa majina naitwa Jared Dorare, mimi ni kijana kutoka chache. Sisi kama vijana tumeonyesha kwamba mission ya kupeleka Gachagua nyumbani. Mkiangalia si hapa Kisii, mkiangalia sisi hatuna mlima, tuko na hills. Sasa tutaenda wapi? Kwa hivyo hatutaki na mambo ya ofisi. Hivyo rais, tunakuomba uweze kuleta Kenya pamoja.
Haraka. Sukumane tu, tutatoa maoni. Tutasukumana tu, tusukumane.
Barongo.
If India does a mistake, let us vote them out in 2027. If they
to have a kingpin. Gachagua pinga mlima kwamba yeye ni Simba dad.
I must confess we are having some technical challenges in that feed from Kisii, but as soon as we clear that, we'll be crossing over back to Kisii, and that's not Kisii that we are stationed. We are also stationed in Mombasa, where my colleague Ann Mburu is currently at the Tononoka grounds, and we can have some views from the residents there. And I must stress here that the views expressed by, or sentiments expressed by some of the people or Kenyans do not necessarily represent the views of the corporation. Let's first of all cross over to Mombasa.
Good morning to you, to Ben Troy and We're back from Broadcasting House, and I'm coming live to you from the Tononoka Social Hall in Mombasa County, where the public participation on the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment is ongoing. And right now, there has been a lot of divergent opinions in the Social Hall. And right now, I'll be joined by some of the residents from Mombasa County who will just give me an opinion of what they think about the impeachment and
Kwa majina naitwa Patrick Gakunju na ni mkazi wa Mombasa na ni mpiga kura hapa nimesimama. Nilikuwa nimekuja kwa kutoa maoni yangu, lakini yale nimeona ni sarakasi. Hakuna kitu kinaendelea hapa, ni sarakasi tupu. Kwa sababu ya kwanza niliangalia fomu niliyoipata mwanzo ile ya kujaza. Nikajaza fomu ambaye haina serial number. Fomu yenyewe haina mahali wa kuandika namba ya kitambulisho, haina hata mahali unaweza kuandika telephone number au mobile number. Mwanzo nikajua hiyo mwanzo ni defective. Kisha nikajiuliza, ndio tumekuja kutoa. Sasa ukiangalia yale maswali yanaulizwa hapo, kuna maswali matatu. Unapinga au upingi? Huko nyuma unapewa kujibu maswali yale umekubali. Kwa hivyo ya kupinga hakuna mahali wa kujaza. Kwa hivyo the form itself is defective. That's what I mean. Kwa hivyo hii kazi tunafanya hapa ni kazi ya bure, ni kazi ya eleweki, inafanywa namna gani? Kwa sababu moja, unaweza kupanga kurigi election hata kabla haijafanyika. Kwa hivyo hapa tumekuja tu kutembea, hakuna maoni yanachukuliwe, na sijui ni nini, hakuna maoni ambao ya kufanywa siku moja na kaunti nzima. Kura tulipiga kutoka wards na polling station. Sasa hii ni kaunti nzima waje hapa. Ndio wabunge walipewa pesa, tunajua, na ndio ambao unaona watu wanapiga kelele huko. Tuliambiwa walipewa 300,000 pa mbunge. Hizo ndizo wametumia kuleta watu hapa kupiga kelele na kuwashangilia. Lakini wamekodishwa, wamepikiwa wali wale, ndio wafanye nini? Wafanye hiyo kazi. Kwa
maybe opinion yako ni ipi?
My opinion ni hii. Sioni sababu ambayo yoyote ya kuimpeach Gachagua as a person. kwa sababu hawa watu walichaguliwa ngapi? Wawili. Na kama wanasema ni mkabila, ukienda katika appointing authority huwa ina nani? Ina president. Na ukiangalia kuna mahali nimekuta yeye ndiye amechagua watu wote, yeye ndiye mkabila namba moja, lakini ikija kwa kuzungumza Gachagua ndio mkabila. Sijui ukabila unakuja kwa sababu ya kwenda kwa watu wake kuwaeleza, I don't know. Appointing authority you na president. Gachagua hakuna mahali anaandika au kufuta. Yeye kama ni mkabila namba moja ni huyo mtu mwenyewe, the president himself. Kwa hivyo hii ni kutusumbua tu. Tungeambiwa tuje na kutoa maoni ya kumtoa au tumweke akae. Lakini Gachagua is a waste of time. Sasa akiondolewa tumefaidika na nini? Kuna mambo mengi sana yanaendelea hapa Kenya. Wizi wa kwanza ndani ametuzia kila kitu hapa. Mambo ya our health na mambo mengine.
Asante sana kwa maoni yako. Sasa tungepata mwingine atupatie maoni yake. Utatueleza tu labda the whole exercise today unaionaje, na labda maoni yako ni yapi juu hiyo impeachment yenye inaendelea sasa hivi?
Mimi maoni yangu ni kwamba hii exercise is a waste of time. Kwa sababu kitu ya kwanza ukiangazia forms za tumiwa, they are fake. Hazina serial number. There is no way somebody can account ya kwamba mimi ndio nimejaza hizi. Hakuna pahali unaweka namba ya kitambulisho, haina serial number na haina hata namba ambayo unaweza kuuliza kuverify kwamba hii signature yetu. Kwa hivyo there is a waste of ya resources ya Wakenya. Na kitu moja mimi nataka kuomba rais ni kwamba harusi ni ya watu wawili, na hii serikali ni ya Ruto na Gachagua. Hakuna wakati inakuwa ya Gachagua ya Ruto au ya Gachagua peke yake. Ikiwa Ruto amechoka na ule mtu ambaye tulimpea adivozi Gachagua, harusi ndiye yetu tuifanye sisi. Kwa hivyo nawaambia kitu yako kingine ya kwamba uwezi kwamba wewe katika nyumba yako umeoa bibi, alafu wewe umechochwa na yule bibi, unaanza kumezea maid mate. Hatutakubali harusi ya mtu ambaye hatukuchagua. Tulichagua Ruto na Gachagua, hiyo ndio serikali tunajua. Kwa hivyo asante sana, na pia niongeze ya kwamba Mombasa hii ni ya ODM na Azimio. Kwa hivyo wanawaambia wabunge wa ODM na wa Azimio tulisaidiana tukatangaza hii serikali ya kaunti, lakini tunawaambia toeni kiherehere kwa mambo ya UDA. Hapana kujitibedekeza, lakini ya kwamba ikiwa umeingia kwenye serikali kwa kuvuruga, tunawagojea. Hapana kugusa mlima.
Asante sana. Sasa pia wewe bwana utaanza na majina yako alafu utatueleza maoni yako ni yapi, kwa sababu kuna madai mengi sana kuwa yamewekwa mbele ya bwana Gachagua ndio uweze kuwa kuna impeachment hii yenye inaendelea. So leo ni public participation, labda maoni yako ni yapi?
Asante sana. Kwa majina mimi naitwa Evans Momanyi, ni mwanaharakati wa kutetea haki za kibinadamu. Number one, in 2010 we passed Kenyan constitution. Tulipiga kura mimi na wewe tukapitisha katiba. Then we have institution mandated to deal with corruption, to deal with the NSAS in case someone like this is presidents. When you talk about presidents, it means all of them, inclusivity. If, for example, the deputy president has violated the constitution of Kenya, kitu ya kufanya ya kwanza raisi, kwa sababu yeye alichaguliwa kwa chama ambao ni chama ya UDA, he could have started by revoking Gachagua from the party itself. Then from there he will be subjected to the IBC collection of signatures ndio iletwe. Lakini masuala ya kumtoa hii, from my own opinion, it is a matter of broad-based government. It's about that we have already welcomed the Azimio into government. And at the end of the day, and I'm really pleading with the president, you might think that Gachagua will be impeached, but at the end of the day, you will also be impeached yourself. And we'll have a lot of hard time going forward. Even your re-election in 2027, itakuwa na shida, Your Excellency. Let us go back as a country. We do reconciliation. We sit down and reflect ourselves. Hakuna mtu ana makosa. Na kosa moja alimfukuzi mwanamke. Tukae kama wa Kenya, tuchenge nchi yetu. Kenya in 1963 kulikuwa na kabila hii na kabila hii na kabila. Tulikuwa tunapigana na mambo matatu: ukosefu wa ajira, maskini na elimu ambao tulikuwa hatuna, lakini kwa sasa Wakenya wamesoma, wanakuangalia rais unapo articulate issue na vile unafanya kazi. Na be very careful, and I'm really warning you, be very careful. You might find that unamtoa Gachagua ukapata we pia ukatoka, kwa sababu ukiona mwenzako yanyolewa chako kitie maji.
As you heard from the residents of Mombasa, I know we do not have time, but they really want to give their opinions. But as you've heard, each and every one of them has given their own opinion, and it does not reflect anything with the national broadcaster. So back to you in studio, Ben Troinjue. We will give you subsequent bulletin. In our subsequent bulletin, we will give you a brief of whatever happened today.
Thank you. That has been Ann Mburu live from the Tononoka grounds. Well, heated, sometimes passionate sentiments by Kenyans there. Remember, we are keeping tabs with the public participation exercise on the Ouster motion that was presented on Tuesday in Parliament. Today, the whole day, we'll be having those sessions, and we'll also be keeping tabs with what is happening also in Kisumu, right here in the capital, Nairobi, and also we'll go back to Kisii and other parts that we'll be able to cover. Again, thank you indeed so much for joining us on this special edition of today being the public participation exercise. And I'm not alone. I have three gentlemen. We have Wamboi Shadrack, an advocate of the High Court. We also have governance expert Sami Meli, and also political scientist and also university Don Oscar Omondi. Gentlemen, you've heard yourself. Yeah. And there's something that one of the Kenyans there has talked about in terms of this exercise. The leaders that we have. Remember, governors, we have impeached a number of governors, and some have gone home, some have been saved by the court, some have been saved by Senate. But we've never had a public participation exercise for other leaders. Wamboi.
Well, I think at the very nascent of these proceedings or procedures, when we began exploiting the procedures of the removal of a governor, particularly when you want to look at the time of Babayao, this is Ferdinand Waititu, we did not involve the people. We did not have, the participation of the people of Kiambu during that process. However, when we went to the process of the removal of the governor of Wajir County, then, yes, this is during the year between the year 2017 to the year 2022. Then I believe he's called Mohammed someone. So when we had his removal and his successful removal at it, remember there was a challenge that was taken to court questioning, the decision to have him removed from office. Now, the courts, I believe this is my Lord Justice P.J. Otieno, made a certain decision that I think is what has now led to the, to influencing the mind and the decision that was made by the chair, the Speaker of the Honorable National Assembly. This is Honorable Masika Wetangula. So the court then returned a finding that the removal of the governor of Wajir was unconstitutional because there was no public participation during that process. Now, you will see that subsequently, just recently, in Nyamira County, when the Nyamira County Assembly was discussing, the impeachment of the governor of Nyamira, this is Honorable Nyaribo, Amos Nyaribo, then there was a call for the people to participate in that process. So that we are seeing, due to the jurisprudence, now this is now the law as it is made or made by the courts through the interpretation of the Constitution and the laws that we have in this country. Then the people of Nyamira County were involved during that process, which of course did not see the light of day. Now, fast forward to the first day of October 2024. In the ruling or the guidelines that were given by the Honorable Masika Moses Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly, of the first day of October, he gave us directions and said that in view of some of the concerns from the Honorable Members of Parliament, then it was discernible, it was his wisdom that we need to subject the removal of the person of His Honorable, His Excellency Rigathi Geoffrey Gachagua from office to a process called public participation, which essentially means the seeking of the views of the people so that the people who are now exercising delegated authority in Parliament, our members of Parliament, can be informed directly of the feeling of the people on the ground. You know, Rigathi Gachagua is known for saying that anasikizanga ground. So it is important that they listen to the ground. What are the people saying about the removal? Now, his designation of these 47, areas within the 47 counties that we have to form the areas where people are going to participate in this process. Now, the question that then lingers is one, and this is the things that we are getting from the people. I mean, you've interviewed people in Mombasa, you've interviewed people, you've tried to get views of people in Nairobi and those in Kisii, and there are two things that come out very clearly, which I think must form, part of the discussion of what we are discussing here now, is that there is a question about the inclusivity of the people. It is not cheap moving from one area of Nairobi to Bomas of Kenya. I mean, moving from Mathare to Bomas of Kenya, moving from Ngong and Kiserian to Bomas of Kenya will cost you approximately 100 plus shillings, approximately even 200 shillings. Now, we are living in an economy where people do not even, cannot even afford their basic meals. You've heard of people saying, wanainama so that a meal can pass. This is to mean that they have to sacrifice their lunch, they have to sacrifice their supper or their breakfast for them to survive in the current economic status. So then you ask yourself, is the process that is being conducted within the 47 county areas, is it inclusive in a way? Does it accommodate the views of the common mwananchi? And I believe I now turn to what Sami was saying, that when we voted in these representatives, we voted them in at the basic units of the electoral system. If you want to look at the ward level, at the polling stations, then I thought to myself, and I say this with tremendous respect and humility, is that I thought to myself that for us to have an effective public participation exercise that is inclusive of all the views and the people in this country, then we ought to have devolved this process all the way down to the ward levels. Not necessarily the polling stations, but the ward levels. Again, what is the wisdom of taking it to a county level, yet the process is being done by members of National Assembly who represent us at the constituency levels? A county will ordinarily be formed by 5 constituencies. So that 5 constituencies, then we have now disenfranchised even the other constituencies. So really, the question that ultimately we have to ask ourselves is the process an inclusive process? Again, you've heard the question about people, questioning. People are coming up with arguments that, well, we are fighting with the Adani deals, we are fighting with the chief, we are fighting with the Shah and Shungshing, or whatever the Shah that are there. So the question then the people are asking, is it a matter of priority, as it is now, to come up with the idea of the ouster of the deputy president from office? Is it a priority issue? Have we dealt with all other pressing needs and concerns that are there in Parliament, are there in the Republic of Kenya, so that we prioritize now the removal of the person of Rigathi Gachagua from office? Now, there is a sense in which I feel that the members of Parliament, and particularly the National Assembly, is taking this thing in a very rushed process. One, the Constitution in itself does not tell us of timelines that have been given to the National Assembly to conduct this process. The only timelines that have been given to us by the Constitution are those given to the Senate to ensure the expeditious disposal of this motion.
But I think what you're saying,
so really, no, Oscar, just give me my time. I kept mum when you were discussing. So the thing that there is, well, even while an accused person in our laws has the right to an expeditious process, a process that will be done without any unreasonable delays, the courts The courts have been called to question, to determine that question. What is unreasonable delay? What is expeditious disposal of a case? Does it mean, you know, like Morara, you take a plea on Monday, on Tuesday, your case is set down, you are heard on Wednesday, then a judgment on Friday? Does it mean that? The unreasonable delay in our constitution? Then, what then does it mean when a motion has been tabled in Parliament to cause the removal of the deputy president, and there are no timelines that are given there? The speaker, in his wisdom, comes and says, tabled on the 1st, on the 4th, we'll have public participation, an advertisement on the 3rd. Then they have come up with a template, the template that does not even inform us quite substantively of what is happening in Parliament. Remember, when we were even passing the Constitution, we had copies of the Constitution being supplied everywhere. So that people can be informed. Now you've told us we come back on the 4th, then on Tuesday next week, they hear the side of the story of Rigathi Gachagua. Then they vote by midnight. Then by next week on Thursday, the motion has been sent to the Senate. Then now Senate has constitutional timelines, which is deliberate, because we intended to have a very thorough process being conducted at the National Assembly. Yes. So I think
pick it from there, because we are talking about less than a month. They campaigned for months. You're telling me the process of removing a deputy president, the timelines are so squeezed.
Yes.
And this is the second in command that was elected by the people. But hold the thought. Yes. We will also cross over to, as you can see, that is Kisumu. And as soon as we get a good feed, we will be tasking our reporters on the ground to give us the process from the registration to actually filling out what exactly that form has and what is the next process. But away from that, let's cross over to the Kiambu County Social Hall. Kiambu County Social Hall, where, as you can see, my colleague is on standby to give us a feel. Kahiro, what exactly is happening there, and what is the process of actually giving? Kahiro.
Right, good morning to you, Ben Troy Njue. We're coming to you live, loud and clear from the Kiambu County, here in particular with the Kiambu County Social Hall, whereby, citizens have just joined their counterparts across the country to just, present their views on the recently tabled impeachment motion against the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. Well, what I can just remind you is that in Kiambu County, only 2 members of Parliament who did not send their signatures on that particular impeachment motion, and the rest actually, assented their signatures on that particular motion. In this particular facility in the morning, we actually experienced some chaos, whereby some locals actually faulted the manner in which that particular activity was being undertaken. But right now, the activity is ongoing in a very smooth manner. And maybe to just talk to one of the locals who was here in the morning to tell us what really transpired to that particular incident, whereby we experienced just a little bit of chaos in this particular facility. Junge hapa, pengine wanza na jina lako, utuambie what really happened.
Kwa majina ni Jesse. Kitu ya kwanza, wakaaji wa Kiambu walikuwa wamejitokeza na kwa upendo ili wa attend public participation, lakini kufika walipata mambo imetendeka. Mambo ilikuwa imefanyika chini ya maji, forms zingine zilikuwa zimesainiwa. Wakaaji wa hapa walikuwa wamejitokeza kwa uzuri. Tunapata forms, they are so different. Kuna original, kuna faked, zingine hata wazazi wanapewa na confusiwa. And so there is a lot of kulikuwa na chaos kubwa sana. And so wakaaji wa Kiambu wakakasirika sana, na ikakuwa ni kwamba sasa hata hao viongozi ambao walikuwa wameenda kuassign the impeachment motion hawajajileta kutusomea clout by clout. Wangejileta watuambie hii ndo makosa tuliona na hii ndo hatukuona. Ila bado jambo la pili, public participation ya hii imefanyika kwa njia isiyo halali. Kama ilikuwa njia halali tungeletewa kwa police station zetu. Because kama mzazi ako Katuanyaga, mwingine ako Thika, hajaweza kupata uwezo wa kufika hapa. Alafu hii kitu yote ilikuwa ni kama feature ilikuwa ina happen. Hakuna jambo inaendelea. Watu wanafaa come out clearly. The public participation in Kiambu haijafanyika. Microphones zilizimwa. Hii ukora. So viongozi ambao walienda kusign impeachment ya Rigathi, they know what is behind today's. Najua ni furaha yao kuona haijafanyika, lakini wananchi wamefurahia kwa sababu wanasema one thing, Rigathi Gachagua abaki. Na kama tunaenda ni kufa dereva, kufa makanga, kufa abiria.
Thank you so much, Bentro. Maybe to speak to another local here to just tell us their views on this particular public participation and how it has been conducted. Pengine utuanzishie na jina lako.
Naitwa Mheshimiwa Ruth Waithera, nimechaguliwa Githega, Githunguri sub county. Na mimi nafurahi sana kwa sababu mbunge wetu pale Githunguri yeye alikataana na maneno. Na sisi tumekuja kusema hatutakubali kiongozi naibu wa rais akuwa akipelekwa kutolewa pale hivyo bunge. Wananchi wametutuma kama viongozi wakatuambia hawatafirwa tena. Wametosheka kufirwa. Wananchi wako na mashida. Hao wabunge wa Kiambu waliotia sahihi hawajakuja hapa. Tulikuwa tunawagoja hapa wakuja watuambie ni nini waliona. Namba 3, wananchi walisema vile walipeleka zile forms za elections mashinani. Sisi tulikuwa tunasema tuletoe hizo forms kule mashinani katika polling stations ndio kila mwananchi alete haki zake. Hii hall ukiangalia inakaa watu 500. Watu 500 hawezi represent Kiambu County where we have around 1.6 registered million voters. Kwa hivyo sisi tunasema tunakataana na maneno na hakuna mahali Rigathi anaenda na hao wabunge washindwe, wanatafuta pesa ya tumbo zao. Ukipewa 1,100 unaenda unaweka sahihi. Sisi tumekataa na tunataka kupongeza wale wabunge kutoka senator wetu yule MP wa Githunguri, MP wa Juja na yule mheshimiwa mwingine nominated Triza. Hao ndio viongozi wetu wa Kiambu na hao they are our heroes na hatutakubali mahali Rigathi Gachagua ataenda. Na kama ataenda tumesema ni kufa dereva, kufa makanga.
All right, those are just some of the views of this particular area. The locals of this particular area have actually faulted the manner in which this public participation exercise is being conducted. And immediately after the chaos, what I can say, Ben Troy, is that security was beefed up here to just ensure that the day will be successful and ensure by the end of the day, of course, every person will be in a position to conduct or to engage in this particular exercise. Maybe we'll be in a position to keep tabs in different countries to just ensure by the end of the day we'll be in a position to give you a very detailed story and of course inform Kenyans on what is happening here. Ben Troy, back to you in studio.
Thank you, John Kahiro, live from Kiambu Social Hall, and he has indeed confirmed that there was some commotion in Kiambu, but security had to step in and quell that. Quite some emotive responses from the residents there, but it's more or less expected. Also, Bomas, we've had some reports getting to us is that there has been some issues as well, but we'll be getting our reporter who is at Bomas of Kenya to shed light on exactly how that process is going on in the capital, Nairobi. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this special edition. We are looking at the public participation exercise that kicked off across the country this morning. That is in regards to the ouster of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Panel of 3 gentlemen here to put things into perspective and especially on the public participation exercise. To you, Meli, I'm looking at what we are seeing. We haven't seen any political leader coming out. And the MPs, some MPs have a big dilemma, and especially those that come from the strongholds of the Deputy President. Remember, they are supposed to spearhead this exercise in their own respective constituencies.
You know, everyone, including myself, have where I come from. And the Deputy President has branded himself and become a darling of the people, being the truthful man. Mm-hmm. And therefore, whatever he says, most people have always taken this as the gospel truth. So perhaps that emotive part, you know, it has not been explained to these people in clear language, simple language. What are these grounds that the Deputy President has? And that is why I would support my fellow panelist here, Oscar. The Article 118 does not give us express instruction that everything must undergo a public participation, especially when it involves a national leader like Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, actually the Deputy President. So this thing has been done hurriedly. And perhaps the people are feeling like this thing is just here for PR purposes. The public participation in itself is eliciting tension in the country, which is uncalled for. This is a political process. It's not a judicial process. It's a political process, and it is affecting a politician. And what I'm just trying to imagine is the reason why this public participation is being done is to avoid a situation whereby Honorable Rigathi, if the bill goes through or the motion goes through and he goes to court to seek recourse using the public participation that was not done, it will be said it was done. It is even recorded. Here are the records that we went to for public participation. But at the end of the day, the view of the local man down there will not be taken anywhere. And that is why the people feel like they are being left out, in as much they are being bridesmaid in a wedding. The wedding is not theirs. But remember, this is a national leader that was elected by individuals. In as much as we elected the president, there are people who feel that for me to give President Ruto my vote, somebody influenced it. And this person is being touched. What do I do? So I think the Kenyans, where they are, this is a process. It might succeed, it might fail. It is a political process. Just like somebody who is vying, you can win, you can lose. So it shouldn't be that it is something of life and death. It isn't like that. Honorable Rigathi has his life, a whole life ahead of him. The people of Murima have so many opportunities ahead. We shouldn't look like it is the only thing, is a do or die thing. It's a political process. It was initiated by members of parliament. It is their role. It is enshrined in the constitution. And that is why it's a process. Just the same way, if you go see a doctor and they say, no, I think you should undergo MRI. Yes, and so many people don't like that test. Yes, and if that test goes through, if you tell somebody to go a second time, it starts. So perhaps there's tension in the country that is not it's uncalled for. It's a political process. We will hear it. The only thing I wanted is, even though they say justice delayed is justice denied, I'd want this process to go slowly until we get into our system and agree. Because the way it is coming, the way Wakili said, it is introduced this day, by Tuesday it has to be done, public participation is done after 2 days, the Senate has to carry out. Why can't we have even 6 months to decide? Yes, he can stay on suspension. And that is why Baba, sometimes I agree with Baba when he said, there are some clauses in this constitution we should look at.
And we will be looking at that because there have been some clarion calls for the amendment of the constitution, and Shadrach, you will drive us there.
Their terms.
No, the term.
Other than that, a progressive constitution has to be amended from time to time, and we have seen progressive constitutions like America, India, England have been amended, but we haven't touched ours yet as much. Yes, but we will be looking at that. Yeah.
Njue, there is an impression that was given by Don, Oscar, Mr. Omondi.
Yes.
Which is not correct. Our constitution is not borrowed from America. Our constitution is actually a copy-paste, or rather heavily borrowed from the South African constitution. What we've borrowed from America is the appreciation of now the distinction in our systems of governance. Like we have a clear-cut separation of powers. That the courts will do what is called judicial restraint. If a matter is pending before the National Assembly, we will see some restraint being conducted or being done by the courts. We've been seeing it. I mean, even with the refusal that of the courts to deny some interim reliefs that we have sought, in protecting or preserving this whole issue. But after all is said and done, yes.
I think...
gentlemen...
Yes, you just take the constitution of South Africa and then take the constitution of Kenya.
We are heavily
that is what is borrowed, not
although
the American.
We've also picked some some from the Indian constitution. We've borrowed a few things, but heavily borrowed from South Africa.
Heavily borrowed. Like our constitution is actually almost a copy-paste. Even some of the mistakes in our constitution. Like we have grammatical mistakes. We have grammatical mistakes in our constitution. Yes, and these grammatical mistakes, you can actually see them in the constitution in South Africa.
All right, gentlemen, let's cross over to the heart of the center, that is Bomas of Kenya, where the Nairobi public participation is currently underway. When we come back, we'll also be looking at the options that DP has. He has about 5 options that he can decide to pursue, including resignation and including waiting for the whole impeachment motion, or even the head of state can intervene. But before we look at that, let's first of all cross over at Bomas. We had there was some commotion earlier on. Let's first of all listen in. What's going on?
Expression, and you only express it within 30 seconds. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Please, if we are going to impeach Gachagua, let us also impeach President William Samoei Ruto. Ya mwisho ni huyu kijana huyu. Ya mwisho kabisa ni huyu. Huyu kijana huyu.
Oh boy. Very charged atmosphere. That is Bomas of Kenya, where Kenyans have made their way to give in their submissions in regards to the impeachment. And as you can see, it's quite charged. And as soon as we have a clear feed, we will be crossing over back to the Bomas of Kenya to know exactly what is happening there and how are these sentiments being factored in. Oscar, we were looking at some of the options that the head of the deputy president has, including one, he can resign during, before, or after the motion is passed on to Senate. Right, Wamboy?
Yes.
And also he can marshal his troops. We've seen that he has a number of MPs who are supporting him. He can also wait for the whole process, because the process has already started. And he can also seek legal redress at the corridors of justice, or even the head of state can decide, let's stop this.
Yeah, I think I'm so grateful because of the discussion today. Because I realized that now Meli has now understood my position, where I was coming from, and Wakil is almost getting there.
No. Not at all.
Okay. And because we're discussing public participation, we've discussed it here and you've seen it there. And my position was that this process involving that type of discussion on those opinions, we have 3 processes in making decisions where you involve universal suffrage all over the world. We have referendums where we take opinions. There's public opinion versus voter behavior. Public opinion is only measured every day in the election year. Every day you can measure public opinion. So what is being asked here is, people are measuring public opinion. What is the opinion? And public opinion does not necessarily inform voter behavior. So voter behavior is measured once after every 5 years. So we can do that through a process called a referendum, which we've been involved in a referendum before, and Troy, you've been here when they're doing a referendum over some of these issues. Apart from a referendum, we have an election. When this process is going on and you see the sentiments of the people, it feels like there's an election. I completely agree that when you impeach a president or a deputy president, it feels like overriding the rights and the choices of the voter. But we must agree that when we voted on, I think in the 2010 Constitution, we agreed as a people that these are the laws that will govern us. So feelings and emotions should not override anything now. We agreed that people can be removed through impeachment, unless we don't want to implement the new constitution. But if we implement the new constitution, know that if you elect a president, he can be removed through an impeachment. What should be the caution that we should have the threshold of impeachment should be so high that by partisan issues, because you don't like somebody's policies or you don't like somebody personally, you can mobilize your political party and go and impeach the person. I will give you an example. Again, I will give an example of the American situation. There were Democrats who immediately, 2 weeks after the election of Donald Trump for the first term, they were like, we will remove him through an impeachment. Because there was a story that Russians interfered with the election of the US, of America. So you can elect somebody in 2027, and other people, Parliament says that we will remove him. But you know, you are subduing and overriding the choice of the people. But as a people, we must accept it, that impeachment is a process that can be used and can be we can be subjected to that process. And this public participation should not be used to make that decision. When we agree and elect a member of parliament, when we agree and elect an MCA, that MCA becomes our representative. And the MCA has a right, given by the Constitution, to go and impeach a governor. Again, MPs have a right, given by the Constitution, to go and impeach a president, which has to go through the Senate, our representatives. So whether you're feeling and the people voted, yes, you voted, but your rights ended immediately after the voting. As much as we have a consultative constitution, as much as we have a participatory constitution, but the letter of the Constitution says that impeachment is a process that can be used to remove a popularly elected representative. Even the courts, whatever he's saying about the courts, about Wajir I think the fact that it was the court that did it, impeachment process should end at Parliament. And why do we have impeachment process? It is because you are not in good terms with parliamentarians. That is why Zuma is not in office. He lost Parliament. When you are president, you should be able to run the executive, have Parliament with you, and the judiciary, because they cooperate, the three arms of government, they cooperate. But if you lost power of the Parliament, then you can't be impeached. So any person in government, be it Gachagua, even if he succeeds in this impeachment, you know, Governor Kawira Mwangaza has lost favor with parliamentarians in Meru. No matter how many times the Senate brings Governor Kawira Mwangaza, she will still be impeached because she's lost favor with representative of Meru County.
All right. Just hold the thought. Let's first of all cross over to the Bomas of Kenya and how I feel of exactly what is happening there. Remember, Bomas of Kenya is the venue for the Nairobi public participation. So if you'd like your views to be factored in, you should make your way there. Let's listen.
Hivi leo nimewasikiza nyinyi wa Nairobi, umesema hata hii Nairobi yetu ikuwe region. Ndio kwa maana wakati wanapeana kazi ya majeshi, Nairobi iwe ni region ya kupewa kazi ya yes, Nairobi iwe ni region ya kupewa makazi. Ikiwa ni wakati ya kupeana kazi ya walimu, pia Nairobi ikuwe recognized kama region. Sisi tumewasikiza na kazi yenu mmetenda, nasi sisi siku ya Tuesday kama wabunge tutaingia pale bungeni tukiwa tumesikiza sauti hizi kupitia public participation. Hii yetu ya Nairobi itakapotangazwa pale kwenye magazeti, itasemekana ya Nairobi ilifanyikana kwa amani na ilifanyikana to a saturation point. Kwenye research, saturation point ni ile wakati ambao ongea hadi wameanza kujirudia. Ukisikia point inarudiwa, ujue kwenye survey yako umefika kwenye saturation point. Kwa hivyo kwa mara ya mwisho, wana Nairobi, naomba mjipigie makofi kama uko ndani ya halaiki hii, kama uko kwenye hall hii, piga makofi ya kisawasawa ya Kinairobi. Asanteni sana wa Nairobi. Hiyo sauti ambayo umeisikia ni sauti kusini John KJ Kiarie, mwana Nairobi halisi na mzalendo wa Kenya. Asanteni. Alright. Ukiangalia saa yako, it is good sharp. And that is the which are being said
All right, from Bomas of Kenya, and again, we do apologize for that technical hitch. We cross over to Kisumu. Earlier on, that has been the Rigathi Sawa, the MP, together with the Honorable Kajwang there, actually talking about that they will be factoring in what Kenyans have said, but we will be looking at that as well. Are the MPs really being genuine, or are there some other strings being pulled? But away from that, let's first of all cross over to Kisumu City. Wycliffe Okech is currently on standby to give us a feel of what the Kisumu people have to say. Over to you, Wycliffe.
Well, thank you so much, Ben Troy Njue. Back in Nairobi, it is quite a historic day regarding the special motion that was tabled before on the floor of the National Assembly regarding the impeachment of the Deputy President, that is Rigathi Gachagua. And today being the 4th of October, when the public participation exercise is being conducted across the country, that is in 47 venues across the country. And where we are right now, this is Tomboya Labour College, one of the 47 venues that is being where the public participation exercise is being conducted. And I don't know, you may not be able to see the building from where that participation exercise is being conducted, but then because of the crowd behind me here. But then what's happening in there is that there is the signing of forms by the residents who have reached out to this place actually to participate in this particular exercise. Earlier on, there was both the oral submission and then the signing of forms, but then at some point the oral submission stopped because of a little bit of tensions. There was some sort of misunderstanding, and now that brought about stopped the oral submissions. And what's happening in there is now the signing of forms. Of course, an exercise being led by staff of the Parliament. We haven't seen actually a member of Parliament, but we understand that they are also having those forms working in their respective constituencies to engage their constituents. But then the crowd behind me here, Troy, is these are residents of Kisumu across from the various constituencies that is forming up the Kisumu county. And just a bit, let me engage a bit of them to understand exactly what they have to say regarding this special motion. Starting with you, you look into the camera, tell us today's exercise, what do you make of it?
Thank you very much. As
your name first?
My name is George Ayugi, but the chairperson of the ruling party, Kisumu County. Today I am here not as the chairman of UDA, but as a voter and a Kenyan who is petitioning the Parliament, participating in the impeachment motion that has been leveled against the Deputy President. We are all aware, and all Kenyans know, more than 15 million of Kenyans are using smartphones, and we've known what has been going on for the last 2 years. We've seen the Deputy President saying that this government is a partnership government, that if you didn't vote for this government, then you don't belong to the government. We know that all Kenyans pay taxes, and it's our right, whether we voted for the government or we didn't vote for the government, it is your right to enjoy the fruits of this government because we are paying taxes. The second thing is been talking about Mrema, Timsikuje Mrema. And as Kenyans, we know very well that we are free to live in any part of this country, and we are free to visit any part of this country. We have our brothers from Central who are dwelling in Kisumu and part of Nyanza, and they're doing business. Those are our brothers, and we will not turn our back away from them. We know that the person who is being accused, when you do something wrong, you are personally liable, not the community, and you should stop this thing of involving the community whenever he has a problem. The other thing that we know is that he has disparaged the office of the presidency. He contradicts the president. The other time, you remember the issue of Nairobi when the hawkers were being moved from Marikiti to the new market. He told them not to move. So this is something that is bringing the government down. And as responsible citizens, we've come out and said that enough is enough. And we are telling the deputy president that he has to go home. Remember when President Ruto was the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, he came to walk all over the Republic of Kenya. I remember one incident when we went to Bondo University. Bondo University, the recurrent by that time was about 186 million Kenya shillings, and he raised it to 600 million Kenya shillings. The other thing is that he even visiting the locals. Remember when the president was the deputy president, he even paid a visit to Ken Obura in Bondo, and even we had lunch there. So he's a person that was not seeing any boundary.
Yes, given those issues that you have actually raised, in your opinion, given that actually that template form that people are filling in, they have seen it, and one of the questions that they are asking in there, are you in support of the impeachment motion or not?
I do support the impeachment motion against the deputy president. What we want a united nation, and we want the president to implement all the manifesto that he had without being pulled down by his deputy. And we thank the president for working together with the opposition to bring this country together to work as a team.
Thank you so much. Troy, let me just engage one more before I hand it back to you. And gender is quite a relative issue, and we have to engage one of the ladies. Introduce yourself, look into the camera, tell us what you think about this whole motion.
My name is Beatrice Amondi. I am the vice chairperson of the ruling party in Kisumu County. And today I'm standing in as a voter and as a mwananchi wa kawaida. So I support this motion for a few reasons. One, as during campaigns, we campaigned on the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. But looking at what the deputy government, the deputy president has been conversing, moving around the country, he's not aligned to the agenda that we campaigned on. He says he's done this for the farmers, that for the tea sector, and these are things they cannot be solidified. In other words, there's nothing that he's done concrete. It is the same farmers, the same tea farmers and coffee farmers who are complaining of cartels in the sector. So the president was not ignorant enough to appoint Rigathi to be in charge of that sector, hoping and believing that those are people from Mount Kenya, he would support them. How then do you expect the deputy president to support the entire country or do right by the entire country if he cannot support his own? Secondly, a number of times he has sabotaged the president, and this is very unacceptable. The president cannot keep working with someone who sabotages every other work that he is doing. Here, they had a 5-year contract, and it is barely 2 years. There's no single day we have seen the deputy president articulating the agendas of the Kenya Kwanza government. If he's on social media, if he's on media, we see him mudslinging other people, and he's the clean one. That is not acceptable.
So in your opinion, you believe that the points or the charges being leveled against the deputy president are valid?
They are very much valid. So to say, previously, Rigathi was not speaking of Mlima thing, not until the broad-based government came into existence. I don't know what you define of that as a national leader. Why is it a problem now that we are in the broad-based government? So the agenda from Lima is the subject. What is he protruding as a leader, as a national leader? One is not unifying the country. So to me, he should be impeached, and we should let the president select someone he is comfortable to work with, so that tunaendeleza the agenda for Kenya Kwanza government.
Troy, just one more voice from the youth here. Probably he move forward, or you can just give him some space here to talk to Kenyans. Look into the camera, tell us what your name is and what you think about the impeachment motion that has been raised, tabled against the deputy president.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity. My name is Honorable Haman Oginga. I'm the youth leader of Nyakachi sub-county. The reason why I am here, in fact, I logged into this facility at around 1 hour ago to exercise my constitutional mandate to see one Rigathi Gachagua home. Reason being, our forefathers has fought for the independence and the unity of this nation. We cannot let this the important nation to go into ruin because of one person. The politics of ethnicity and balkanization must end. And that is why I've taken my time to come and vote him home. Thank you so much.
But then again, this entire exercise of public participation, I have gone in there, I don't see people presenting orally as it was supposed to be, because what I'm seeing now is just the signing of forms. Do you believe in the effectiveness of this particular exercise?
I believe in the exercise, and that is why, if you can see around, we have some various dignity who are here. These are our assurance that the process is very fair and it's going to reach where we want it to be. Thank you. Yeah.
We are talking about 47 venues across the country, and that is supposed to represent 290 constituencies. Do you think that's ample time, actually? Because we know there will be a debate on the same, that is on Tuesday, on the floor of the Parliament. Do you believe that the time that has been allocated for this particular exercise is adequate enough?
Okay. The time may not be enough, but so be it. We cannot go, all of us. Those few people that have managed to come here, well and good. We will work it out to ensure that we vote for this impeachment motion so that Gachagua can be replaced with somebody who can unify the whole nation. Kenya is greater than one Rigathi Gachagua, and that is why vehemently we are here to exercise our constitutional mandate by voting yes for the impeachment motion.
That's your opinion. One more person, if really, okay, you are here. Okay, fine. Just move a little bit back for this to capture you. Move behind, backwards just a little bit. Look into the camera. Tell us your name. Will I start with you? Or let me start with you first. You're already here. Look into the camera. Tell us your name. Your name and your opinion.
My name is Joshua Orambo. I come from Kisumu West constituency. I came here early in the morning at 6 a.m. to come and support this motion of impeaching Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The reason why I'm here because Rigathi Gachagua does not deserve to be Deputy President because he has become disrespectful to the President, which seems to be disrespectful to Kenyans also. That's why I came here. And also what we have to know, the President and his deputy, this looks like a marriage. When a marriage cannot work in a house, then the wife needs to go and the husband needs to get another woman. That's the case of Gachagua now. He needs to go home.
But then again, I'm sure, have you gone through the charges that have been leveled against the deputy president?
Okay, the charges, I have seen them in the form. They are true as they have been in the paper. They are all true, and there is no false allegation that has been raised against him.
And on that note, on Tuesday, when your member of Parliament will be debating this particular matter, which side will you want him to support?
I will want him to be against the deputy president. He should support this motion of impeaching the deputy president Rigathi Gachagua. That goes to my MP, Honorable Rosa Abuyu. So when he goes there to the Parliament, I expect him to go with this motion of impeaching the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua.
One last thing, and yourself, your name and your opinion on this matter?
I'm Vincent Kabisai, a youth from Nyalenda, Kisumu East. I've come to ensure that the deputy president, Gachagua, he has to go home. Reasons being that he has flagrantly violated the tenets, the principles of the Constitution and the laws of this land. As a deputy president, we expected him to do better than what he has been doing time and time over and over again. So Gachagua must go home.
Thank you. Troy, those are just some of the opinions from Kenyans from this side of the country. This is particularly Kisumu. We are at Tomboya Labour College. This is the venue for the public participation exercise that is bringing together all the representatives, or rather Kisumu residents from across the 7 constituencies. Like I've said, we haven't seen the members of Parliament here. This exercise is being guided by the staff of the Parliament, and what you've heard here is just a representation of what the Kenyans from this side feel about the impeachment motion that has been tabled against the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Like you've heard the mention that Rigathi, being the Deputy President and being the principal assistant of the President, hasn't done much to actually to justify that position. It's that he has repeatedly, a number of times, disrespected the President. That is not my words, but those follow some of the opinions expressed by the residents, like we've had them mention. And on that note, they are in support of the motion that is seeking to oust the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua from office. I know we can't do this all day, but then again, this exercise is still underway, and we'll continue to associate and actually engage these residents here and get to understand what they say, even as the filling of forms continue in that building right in there. But for now, Troy, I know you have an informative discussion in studio, and at this moment, let me just roll it back to you to continue with that discussion rather.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe Okech, live from Kisumu. Varied reactions in regards to the whole exercise and also on the impeachment as well. We'll be crossing over back there a little bit later to check more in regards to the responses that Kenyans have on that. And as I had mentioned, we have three gentlemen here who are helping us put things into perspective in regards to the whole exercise today. And gentlemen, I would like us to shift focus to some of the accusations that we'll not be able to go over the 11 accusations, but some of the accusations that the DP is accused of. And a number of Kenyans have mentioned, there's a lady who was talking about more or less that the DP has been accused of balkanizing the country, dividing the country, and especially in his Mount Kenya unity call. And Oscar, you bear me witness that this has really ruffled feathers, and it's one of the charges there, that instead of being a national leader, he's more or less looking at the Murima, as he likes to put it.
Yeah, I mean,
this is something that could really, actually is really working against him, as we've heard from Kenyans.
You know, he made it in his leadership for the last 2 years. He made it okay to even identify himself with where he comes from, with the region he comes from. You see, when you get an election, you are expected to represent people who voted for you and people who didn't vote for you. There are things that cannot be okay even to say. The demeanor of the office of the Deputy President has been undermined, has been seen to be a small thing. He doesn't act presidential. And this is why even protecting, I tell you for a fact, after the Gen Z's protests, there was a meeting of Kenya Kwanza Alliance that was brought in State House. And the members of Parliament from the backyard of the Deputy President wanted to start the impeachment process against the Deputy President. It is the President who said, no, you can't impeach him for no apparent reason. Let us wait and organize government. But the Deputy President, after that, went on with this Murima idea, and he doesn't. I come from Siaya. The Deputy President has been to Siaya once to attend General Ogola's funeral as the Deputy President. You see, and he's just all over one place, and the demeanor, when it is okay to say it. You know, some of the things are not okay to say in a formal situation. Even you, Troy, I mean, what you say at KBC and what you say at home back in your village is completely different. The conversations are different. We have formal conversation and we have informal conversation. But the DP has always been in an informal mode. You know, coming to address a public rally at the central business district of Nairobi in vernacular, how low can you go? He was at Markiti. Markiti has the CBD, but he was addressing Markiti in vernacular. You get me right? So this one, this is misdemeanor of the office of the Deputy President. I think, I don't want to cast aspersions against him because I'm a professional and I'm looking at this thing. But again, if you look at how he has behaved, he's too emotional. I will tell you one thing on how somebody called the father of politics, called Aristotle, divides society. He divides society into 3 levels. He says they are the guardians. The guardians are people who are like religious leaders, professors, business leaders, and all this elite. This elite, he calls them the guardians. They're the guardians of society, like the monarchs, the kings. They're the guardians of society. These guardians make unpopular decisions for the populace, which sometimes need to be protected. From the head, he uses the head to symbolize them. But for them to do whatever they're doing, they are protected by the chest. That is why in the chest we have the forces, because the chest is the use of force. Who are these? The police force, the defense force, and all these forces. They are there to protect the guardian when the guardian makes unpopular decisions on behalf of the people. Lower below the chest, there is the tummy. This is the Walalahoi, the local Mwananchi, the local man down there. They use emotions to make their decisions. Akipewa kitu kidogo ya tumbo, iko sawa. Now, the deputy president from his DNA, he was a district officer in the Moi days before this new constitution. So in his DNA, he has this use of force. And that is why he is seen as a abrasive leader who makes decisions and drives policy through truthfulness, the way he says it. But you see, in politics, how you influence or how you access power, you can't access power as a politician using force. You must always use a way of winning hearts and minds, influencing the people. That is why when we repealed the new constitution and said that at the county level, we need governors who are elected by the people, serikali ya mashinani, because they are the people representative. We were saying the overt provincial administration that was there in place was not a people's representative type of governance. The deputy president has never reformed from the DO he was to the deputy president, who is a political leader, who is supposed to be winning heart and mind. So he's seen as an abrasive leader, and I think one of the reasons, and I told you this is a political process, one of the reasons why the DP is getting impeached, why he's lost favor with Parliament, it's because of politicians and the political class find him an irritant, because he doesn't have what we call political communicative language. How you communicate political issues is different on how you communicate administrative issues. If you come to Gandhiwing, we teach political science, but if you go to Kenya School of Government, along in Lower Kabete, they teach public administration. A public administrator is different from even a political science, just a normal rhetoric politicians who is winning hearts and minds in spreading or providing leadership. They use the force, like where they teach the DOs is the same instructions that they give to administration police, for example, Kenya Defense Force. Because, for example, if I ask you, Troy, what is Kenya KDF soldier trained to do? A soldier is trained one thing. They're trained to kill. Nothing else. A soldier is trained to kill. Because that is the instruction. And they're disciplined forces. Because they are doing that. That is their work. Right. But transforming a soldier to become...
With all fairness, after he was in the provincial administration, he has scaled the ladder. He has been also... They worked closely with Uhuru. They also worked... he also was an MP. So... Can we really judge him with what he was doing?
Give a man power and money, then they will be exposed. You know one thing, who has been impeached because of such things? You know, former Governor Sonko, his demeanor was not gubernatorial. He used to tape people, he used to do some of the funny things, and he received this. It was not really about fraud. And that I'm telling you, economic mismanagement. Even the charges against the DP, there are some economic and criminal in nature. But to me, I think those ones are just additional most of the time. If it is corruption...
Yeah, because actually a Kenyan has argued in terms of the allegations leveled against him, the financial one, he has been able to buy, I don't know how many hotels, how many parcels of land. Somebody would argue EACC should have been the first ones to raise the red flag, not a first-time MP.
I think it's his demeanor and his attitude and the fact that he has no I think the same reason why Sonko was removed from, impeached, and Babayao was impeached, and the DP. If you look at the three politicians who've been impeached, it is the same. It is because of their political communicative language. And I told you, when you lose favor with Parliament, and it's a political process, it is not a legal process. It is that somebody will say, and even when you say about Josephat Karanja, why was there a vote of no confidence against him? Or Jacob Zuma? Why was there a vote of no confidence against Jacob Zuma in South Africa? It is because of his demeanor. He could not, he was unfit. Why do we do impeachment? The reason of doing impeachment is to constitutionalize government. Remove anybody who is unfit. In terms of what? Gross misconduct, for example.
All right. Meli, let's look at the other side of the coin. We have looked at what the head of the deputy has been talking about, Mambo ya Mlima, every now and then, which some people argue that that is balkanizing the country. The other side of the coin, he says he is a truthful man and politics are local. That is what he said during one of his trips. He said politics are local. We have political formations. We have even how they formed government. It was more or less a political formation based on ethnicity. Why am I saying this? He said when Amason Kingi was coming in, he had his own party. Alfred Mutua, when he's coming in, he had Mandeleo Chap Chap. We had people from URP which mutated into UDA. So he really had a point in regards to how politics are. A good example is we have a broad-based government now. Let's be very honest. They are from parts of Kenya, and mostly those who are perceived to be a little bit radical when it comes to the current serving government. Do believe that the DP, because he said he's a truthful man, so I expect him to defend that on Tuesday when he is in front of all the members of the House, that indeed, even after this impeachment motion was started to be mooted, a section of Mount Kenya leaders said that we are not going to be represented by the Deputy President. We now want Professor Kindiki to take over those reins. More or less the same thing that we are talking about.
One thing is that the Deputy President has, as I said before, has used the tag, the truthful man. But I know gold, and gold is tested through fire to know whether it's pure or not. And the fire is coming on Tuesday. We will know the truth that he has been talking about, whether it will come out on Tuesday. And as you see, the person of the Deputy President is among the highest authorities in the country. And if you look at factors that promote national unity, presidency is one of them. And he should forget the backyard where he's coming from. When you step into the office of the Deputy President, forge all your decisions, your discussions around the country and not go back to your region. Because this is one of the factors that promote national unity. Number two, the national language, which now we agree Kiswahili and English can still be used as both official and national languages. But Kiswahili takes the biggest precedence. He should use Kiswahili in most of his discussions so that he promotes. This is a volatile country. We have gone back to post-election violences. We have gone back to ethical violence, ethnic groups fighting each other because of carelessness with our tongue. I used to sing in Sunday school, ulimi kiumbe kidogo, lakini matatizo yake ni makubwa. It is the softest part in the head, the tongue, but what it can cause is big. And I can attribute everything that is following right now to his tongue. He should tame that tongue. I was at some point asking myself, there is a time to fight and a time to retreat. All indications were there that Rigathi, Honorable Rigathi, was going the wrong direction. And he had been told and he didn't listen. He kept doing that. And when you don't retreat, even the junior most of the officers in a force can even tell the commander it's time to retreat, because the commander cannot see everything that is coming from left, right, and center. Sometimes even the enemy could be behind the commander. So this office is big enough to be petty in some discussions. If you look at the symbols of national unity, our flag, we have only one. The national anthem. the coat of arms, where the deputy president, as he drives his motorcade, there is a coat of arms always. But the person seated inside, ni mtu wa mlima. Inside him, yeye ni mlima. So at what point does he become a national leader, and at what point does he become? And these are things. The constitution is a trap in itself. Ben Troy, if you misbehave here, you live out here, you'll find handcuffs waiting for you. So, and unfortunately, the president and the deputy president cannot be taken to court at this time. But their main court right now is Parliament, and the only process is impeachment. If you violate gross misconduct, and the person who brought this bill has categorically given those things. And you know, as I said before, he who alleges must prove.
Yeah.
And on Tuesday, these things will be proven, and we will know what are they. Unfortunately, Kenyans are being subjected to public participation without those things coming to the table and the evidence.
Yeah.
We should look at the evidence first. Before I say I am in support of the deputy president, I should look at the evidence and say, this is it. But now, I want to imagine I am Rigathi at this point. There's an impeachment motion in Parliament. There are some 60 voices which have not been heard. 291 have been heard. From 350 or 349, there are around 4 constituencies which don't have members of Parliament. So let's say roughly 50. Are these 50 for me? Because we need 233. If you do not understand the composition of the National Assembly, there are 290 elected members of Parliament, 47 women reps, 1 from every county, 12 nominated MPs who can take any side at any point, depending on the political parties that brought them. You know, in this constitution, the speaker doesn't vote, unlike the other one. So these gentlemen, 291 of them are not mad. They have a point. And it is only a wise man who listens to advice and changes mind. He has the president, his friend, and he has always called him his friend. Even before him, he calls him my boss, my friend. The friend can save him at this minute.
Which is one of the 5 options, actually.
That's one option. Go before the president and say, my boss, I have sinned against man and the Constitution of Kenya. Yes? Please save me. The president, he has always marshaled the UDA MPs, the Kenya Kwanza coalition. If the Kenya Kwanza coalition pulls out...
If you look carefully, the 291 MPs are close... very close with the president.
And remember, there's also a new darling in the house, Baba.
Of course, there's a broad-based government.
Yes.
But, Wakili, I'm looking at the 5 options that he have. Before we even go to the 5 options, we have seen the courts do a very good job when it comes to ADR, alternative dispute resolutions. Is there room for these 2 people to just sit in a room and decide on the way forward for the country? Because we are looking at impeachment, resignations, trying to marshal numbers in Parliament. We're also looking at waiting for the impeachment process of even the president himself can marshal his numbers and say, the same way he did with the finance bill.
Yes.
Well, our constitution pronounces itself as a living document, a document that grows with generations and with the society. And one of the things that it appreciates is a reconciling society. That is why under Article 159 of the Constitution, the Constitution pronounces itself that it welcomes reconciliation, negotiations, and all other forms of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. So it is not out of the ordinary if the deputy president sits down and attempts to reconcile with the president, if indeed the president is the one that has authored his misfortune. Because there is a possibility or a sense in which some of the accusations are said that he has insubordinated the president. Now, let us just reflect on some of the grounds that have been tabled before the National Assembly. I believe, from where I sit, the total of about 11 grounds that they have suggested that on a number of occasions he has violated certain provisions of the Constitution. But you see, a violation of the Constitution is not in itself sufficient reason that will lead to his ouster from office. The Constitution, sorry, when you reflect at Article 145 of the Constitution on reasons that will form or that will be used to remove him from office, is gross violation of the Constitution. You have gross misconduct. Then you have now reasons to believe that he has committed any offense under the national laws or the international laws. So the mention of the word gross is very deliberate. It's deliberate because we as human beings are not perfect. That because of our imperfection, we end up sometimes or even oftentimes falling into error. So that you might find yourself offending a certain provision of the Constitution, perhaps not so deliberately, but because of a legal misadventure. You know, people are very adventurous. So you will have offended a provision of the Constitution. And now, for us to give force, or for us to, you know, I'm seeing Oscar Omondi writing. I don't know if I'm offending him. You know, he's writing very thoroughly. Now, but he will have his chance. So when you reflect at, you know, the Constitution has some support mechanism that for us to ensure that we have a cohesive society, we have come up with something called the National Cohesion and Integration Act. So it's an act of Parliament that has created a body called the National Cohesion and Integration Commission that is independent. In fact, that cohesion acts independently. It does not act under the invitation of the DPP. There was a time when we had the former director of director of public prosecutions, Mohammed, you know, Nuruddin Haji. Sorry, Nuruddin Haji. There was a time when he directed the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to arrest the now very vocal senator, you know, senator for Kisii. He's now Onyonka. Yes, there was an indication that he was supposed to be arrested for having made some utterances that were deemed to be inflammatory. And we went to court to have a stop to that, because you see, from the reading of the National Cohesion and Integration Act, you get a sense that this cohesion, this commission is independent, should act independently. So the question then that I want us to ask ourselves is, in view of these allegations that have been said to form the bulk of the accusations that the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua is facing, has the author of the motion or any other Kenyan, including the panelists who are here, ever reported to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission that indeed the Deputy President has overstepped his mandate? Or is it that it is politically convenient for now to now paint him as black? And you know, when the hyena wants to eat its children, sometimes it accuses its children of smelling like goats. So is it now politically convenient? No, just wait. Oscar. No.
Just a minute.
So that is it politically convenient for now? Because the Don has been quite very you know, assertive by saying it's a political process. But even when it is a political process, there is now the legal process, because the law has its foundation on politics. It is politics that leads now sometimes to the formation of the laws that we have. It's the political struggle that we had that led to the birth of the current constitution that we are enjoying. So that, well, we must look at all those things. So we have the National Cohesion Integration Commission, which is charged with the mandate of calling to question about all these issues. And then again, because it is important that we highlight this, on the question about the immunity of the presidency. It is not the presidency that has the immunity. It is not the office, or it is not the deputy and the president. No, it is the president of the Republic of Kenya. It is the person of whosoever is occupying the office of the president that enjoys the immunity during his tenure of the presidency. So we do not want him to be you know, busy in a court, running from one court to the next. So that if you believe that Rigathi Geoffrey Gachagua has committed any offense in our law, there is nothing that prevents the state machinery from arresting Rigathi Gachagua and presenting him before the court.
But the others were dropped the other day.
Now, turning to what he said. Yes. Remember, following his election in the year 2022 into office, there was a push from this very same government that is now accusing him of and you know, they led to the withdrawal of the corruption charges.
Yes,
in fact, a colossal amount of money to the tune of about 200 million shillings. This is not the money that we have seen with our eyes. We just hear it in the news. So an amount of money that had been you know, confiscated by the state, forfeited to the state, was at the Court of Appeal. I mean, the Court of Appeal, you know, through a consent entered by the state and himself and his council, the money was returned to him. So in a sense, they told us that Rigathi Gachagua is beyond reproach. Ni mweupe kama pamba. So now, the same people who told us that ni mweupe kama pamba, alikuwa amewekelewa, all those things, are now coming again to tell us that, you know, this one should not be trusted. This one is a thief. This one has been stealing. They have listed a number of properties, some of which I have reasons to believe even belong to the brother who is now deceased. Because I have, and I make this confession, I have in the previous past participated in the succession proceedings of the deceased brother. So that
who was the governor?
Yeah, who was the governor? I was participating to some extent in those succession proceedings. I was advising, I helped in making some advice somewhere. So really, I have gone through and I have seen. So that from where I sit, well, I appreciate that removal of the deputy president is a constitutional process. I mean, we are not amending the constitution.
Yes.
We have agreed, we agreed in the year 2010 that when we have certain misgivings, that we think that this person has done some violations, then we can remove him. Then the question, again, we need to ask us, because you see, I am here perhaps to provoke us, so that we can think very deeply about the motions. You know, our politicians are not known to be very truthful, and sometimes they mislead us. They talk very highly, then the results that they end up returning are not things that we end up celebrating. So when you look at the question of gross misconduct, this is not something that has not had its way in our courts to determine. At a time when we had the removal of a judge of the High Court of Kenya, my Lord Justice David Muya.
Muya, yes.
Yes, Muya, you remember, my Lord was removed from office. Apparently they said that, you know, he was delaying in delivering of judgments. There was a question that sometimes he gives an interim order, and then he takes too long to make a determination on the issue, and then for that reason he ended up jeopardizing some assets that belong to a very famous bank in this country. So for that question alone, we had a tribunal set for his removal, and then subsequently he was removed from office for apparently having done what is called gross misconduct. Grossly misconducted himself. Then this question found itself at the Supreme Court, because when we have an issue about the removal of a judge, the judge who is affected by the removal has a right to appeal directly to the Supreme Court. Yes. So when the judge appealed directly to the Supreme Court returned a very Solomonic decision that I think finds itself very relevant at this time. Because the Supreme Court said that, you see, while we appreciate that this is a misconduct, it does not in itself get to the threshold of a gross misconduct. So that even someone having misconducted himself, probably speaking about the Murima and all that, no siguse Murima. Now, that does not, of course, not necessarily mean that that is a gross misconduct. It could be a misconduct.
Yes.
So that ultimately, after all is said and done, the question that is there or will be there in courts is whether these accusations that he faces have gotten to the standard that has been set in our constitution. I know, and I'm not very ignorant of this, it is a political question, and I know even with a blank piece of paper, and those parliamentarians having been given a direction, even with a blank piece of paper, and without even sufficient grounds, it will be sufficient in the eyes of the parliamentarians to have him removed from office.
Yes, and if at all he is removed, I'm quite sure he will go to the courts for redress. We've seen him; he has already moved there twice before, actually, before Tuesday, and the court decides that they do not meet the threshold of gross misconduct, and so they say that they rule in favor of the deputy president.
Yes.
Does he resume his office, and can he be impeached again, and we are back to the same square again as we have seen in the governor's cases?
In fact, the Constitution under Article 145, what it proposes to us is that during this whole process, he's still in office.
Mm-hmm.
If he goes to court and finally gets an order, what is called a conservatory order, an order in terms of an injunction, to stop to stop the implementation of the verdict, he will continue being in office. Remember, the only uncomfortable thing that will happen is he is deemed to be the principal assistant of the president. Now, presumably, or what other people will say apparently, what people can, some people are seeing what I'm not seeing. So they will say that he has insubordinated the president, and therefore he cannot be given any assignment. I mean, that is just but a return back to where we were during the second term of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, when we had the current president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, then, just being ignored, not given assignments. He was just in his office at Karen, organizing, and, bringing things together. That is what the president decided to do, to ignore him altogether, and to use the person of Dr. Matiang'i to run or to act as his principal assistant. So it is not a situation that we have not conceived in the past. We have conceived of a situation, and we have seen where a deputy president has been ignored. So to answer straight or directly to your question is that we can have a situation where he gets protection from the court, he goes back to his office, continue earning his salary, and perhaps just reading the newspapers, without getting any assignment given to him. And I think this is one of the recommendations that we should have in our constitution, that we should have clearly defined roles of the deputy president, because I think that is where we get it all wrong. Because, the deputy is just relying on assignments. Let him say this, let him do this.
And after Omondi has responded, we will be getting back to you to tell us exactly. We have seen this rodeo for now so many years during the founding father.
Yes.
And
it's an office of
Odinga.
Yes.
We have seen during Moi. We've seen during the former president.
Yes.
How can we, as Kenyans, be protected from all this rodeo? But before then, Omondi, you have
right to reply to him.
Yes, sure.
Even responding to that, but I think we are still jumping the gun, because I told you that impeachment process, the entire impeachment process, it's a political process. You see, what Wakil is saying is mixing the legality of the situation as vis-a-vis the political process. I told you, one of the reasons why we go for impeachment is because it's found to be unfit, based on evidence that are not verified. That is the political process. Even what is discussing about is the same. They withdrew Gachagua's court cases. Why? Political process. So if you go do Nyanza, where I come from, Ruto is mweupe kama pamba. What? Political process. These are political processes. Why is Gachagua now vilified that? He says that if you want to that has anybody going to court to check if he's overstepped? That is a legal process. We are discussing political process. You've lost favor with the sitting legislature as a member of the executive. That is a political process. Now, after that political process, and I told you, in my understanding, I'm not a lawyer myself, but I know when we subject our courts to deal with political processes like impeachment process, when we have a Governor Kawira Mwangaza, impeached by the Senate, by the MCAs and what have you, then the Supreme Court stops it or any other court stops it. It is wrong. So the fact that it is being done doesn't make it right. The impeachment process should end at Parliament. Courts should only check if constitutional means were used, was this subjected to public participation? Was it done within 7 days? But because it is not about the evidence, what Rigathi Gachagua can do, involve in politics. And that is what you asked. I thought that was where we are going to. How do you involve yourself in politics? Win favor with the president, win favor with the legislator, win favor with the local mwananchi to even press for your, see the opinion thing that we are seeing, what people are doing now, that we want Gachagua. So that we have that one in the system, that opinion wants him back. Politically, he is politically right. But mixing the same political things with legal issues, now we are going to open a Pandora's box that we cannot be able to solve. I think, for example, Troy, if we do this, next time we don't impeach the deputy president. Now we are discussing about impeaching the deputy president. We impeach the president, right? And Parliament impeaches the president, Senate impeaches the president, the Supreme Court stops the impeachment process. We don't have a president. And the court has told us you cannot impeach. You know, we will be held in a constitutional crisis. Because
and that is why actually
is the head of the republic.
Wakili, how we can, as Kenyans, we can be protected from all this rodeo. Because Mondi has a very good point. We are talking about, we started, actually when the Embu governor, we had that, the first governor to be impeached. It was something very big. Now we've impeached, they have gone home. Yes. Now the deputy president impeachment, it's something very big. So there's still room for improvement. We might decide one day, maybe in 5, 10, 20 years, to impeach the president. And then the courts overturns that.
It's good to be clear. You know, the courts do not necessarily, I mean, in the very strict sense, make law. The law is there. The work of the court is just to make, to implement and to breathe life to it. So the courts have no role in stopping the impeachment process. In fact, I agreed to some very little extent with Mr. Omondi that indeed the courts should refrain themselves from interfering with the impeachment process. And that is what became of the Supreme Court judgment in the Wambora. Wambora, the court said, because you see it had been stopped, there was a conservative order that had stopped. Then the court said, the Supreme Court said, no, we should allow, in the spirit of, appreciating the separation of powers, allow them to do what they have to do because it is their power, their prerogative. It is actually their duty to do that. Then once they have done that, then you question, because it is said that they should not look at evidence. They should look at evidence. And that is why we have decided as a society, we have decided that the person who tells us what is right and what is wrong is not even Parliament. It is the courts. It is the courts that tell us that this is wrong or this is right. That there has been a threshold that has been reached to now cause the removal of him from office.
The impeachment process, being a political process, is based on unproven accusations, because it is political. When you go to court,
saying that is like we've already made up our mind that that is exactly what happens.
What I'm saying, courts make their decisions based on evidence.
Yes.
You get me right?
Yes.
Politics, decisions are not made based on evidence. They're just accusations and biases and propaganda and misnuendo and what we talk on the street. That is what happens in political realm. So impeachment process is a political process. When we go to court, it is based on evidence.
All right, we are preparing for the 1 p.m. news. So let me give you a minute each, but we will be back after that short broadcast.
Yes. Now I realize that gross misconduct has so many synonyms. It's called dereliction, immorality, impropriety, malfeasance, malpractice, misbehavior. So you can all see that. And gross misconduct, according to Oxford Dictionary, it says, is a behavior that is illegal, unethical, or grossly negligent. It goes further to say things like theft, fraud, violence, or serious insubordination. So the members of Parliament don't need to prove anything. They just have to to whip the members in support. Whoever supports, whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense, it goes through.
It's political.
If the opposite happens, because the deputy president has a right to visit all these members of parliament wherever they are, marshal, whip them to support, to go against the motion. And he has all the time.
All right, gentlemen, we are out of time, but we will be coming back. We have a short broadcast that we will be broadcasting from 1 p.m. So allow me to put a stop on this discussion for now at the moment. We'll take a quick break. I'll be right back with the lunchtime news.